So you're banking on this to work, because if it doesn't work, you don't got a lot left.
Pardon me?
Like you have $25,000
to buy weed.
Yeah, to buy weed, and if it doesn't work, you're kind of fucked at this point. Okay, well you believe that it's going to work, which is amazing.
It's gonna work. I'm going to make it work.
Okay, I love it.
If it's not this guy, it'll be somebody else.
Okay.
But the only way it's not going to work is if I die.
Got it. Okay.
I don't give up. It's just not in my chemistry.
Amazing. So you knew this was going to be the thing.
Oh no, for sure.
Okay.
And I'm always thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of what's going to happen next. I'm trying to anticipate. It's like playing chess. You know, you got to be 3, 4, 5 moves ahead of the game.
Okay.
And so I go see these guys, right? And they asked me how much money I had, and I said, "How much weed do you have?" I didn't even know what the price of marijuana was.
Yeah.
I didn't know the price of marijuana in Miami.
Right.
Much less in the Bahamas, you know? So the guy said, I said, "Listen, man, I got enough money to buy every pound that you bring." So the guy goes, "All right." So I said, "Okay." So he said, "We're going to do the exchange in the middle of the ocean." Now I look at this guy and I say, "Why the middle of the ocean?" All kinds of bad things are going through my head. You know, you got to remember, at one point or another, the Bahamas didn't live off of tourism.
Right.
It's a nation that made its living off of pirating, you know, contrabands and things like that. Back in the days, so rum running and all that kind of stuff. So all that's going through my head.
Yeah.
Why the ocean? So we meet in the ocean. He tells me we're going to be in such and such a location. He's going to have a flashlight. Go to the light. About 2 o'clock in the morning, I see the flashlight. I tie up next to him, and then he's got a couple of bales, 100 and some pounds each bale. And I don't have a weapon with me. Like I said before, I'm more into karate thing. But I had a diving knife tied to my leg. So I took out the knife. We tie the boats together, and I want to make sure I'm not buying oregano, because that's another thing that these guys are good at.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so,
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. So I want to check this pot.
Yeah.
So I take the knife, I cut a window into it, and I open it up. I stick the knife in. It was pressed hard, like a board. So I smelled it, and I said, "Yeah, this is definitely weed." I don't know the quality, but then again, I'm not an expert either. I don't smoke pot, right? Somebody in Miami will figure it out. So I sit there, and then I brought some duct tape. I closed the little window again, and the guy says, 30 grand. So I take my little brown paper bag, I put it on, and now the weed's on my boat, by the way. So I give the guy the 25,000, and the guy goes, "How much is in there?" I said 25, and then he says 30. You're 5 short. I said, "Well, that's all the money I got." He said you had all this money. I said, "Yeah, that's right." I said, "Well, look, man, I'll come back and I'll bring you the other 5 back." He says to me, "There's no credit in this business."
Right.
And he starts telling me this over and over and over. And he starts getting a little boisterous with me. "There's no credit in this business." You know, and I'm like, "Okay, well, what are we going to do here? Take out $5,000 worth of pot out of this bale?" You know, I said, "There's no other way of, getting it." So there's no credit here. There's 2 guys on that boat. There was an older guy, maybe in his 40s. He's laying back like this. And I was watching him the whole time. That's the guy that I feared the most. The guy close to me I could take care of, but the guy far away, he was too far for me to defend myself in case anything happened. So he says, "Give the kid the pot. I think that he will come back."
Smart.
Blew me away. I looked at him and I said, "Hey, listen, if I don't come back, I'm either dead or I'm in prison. But I will be back."
Right.
I don't lie, I don't cheat, and I live by my word. The guy said, "Let him take it." Right then and there, I turned around, I brought the pot into the States. And here's a funny thing, Rachel. I scored the pot, and I went to see my buddies, the marijuana guys that had turned me down on the sugar mill project, and it helped me with Reuben.
Oh, right.
And I see those guys, they're buyers, they're in the weed business. I don't have a buyer, I don't know where to go with this thing, right? So I say, "Hey, Michael, I need to come by and see you." He said, "Yeah, sure." So I get there, and I said, "I need to put the car in the garage." "What do you want to put the car in the garage for?" "I got something to show you." There was 2 or 3 guys in the house, right? So I pull the car into the garage, and then I say, "Here, look at this." So I show him the pot. He goes, "What'd you do? Where'd you get that at?" Because they knew that I'm not a pot guy or I'm not a drug guy. So what'd you do, find it? So I said, "Oh, I didn't find it." I said, "I brought it in." He said, "You brought it in?" I said, "Well, how much you want for it?" So we agree on a price, $500. So Mike says to me, and I thought this was really hilarious, because Mike says to me, "Okay, fine." So it's like 120 grand that I'm going to give, that he owes me, right? He goes, "All right, T, come back tomorrow. I'll have the money for you." I looked at Michael and I said, "Hey, Michael, there's no credit here."
I love it. So for what you spent for 25,000, what did you recoup?
I ended up with about 100 grand.
Amazing. So I'm assuming you went back and forth, and this became
a shuttle.
Your thing. Okay.
Like an airport shuttle.
And again, are you doing this all because you're trying to get to the 14 million? Are you still working on that project?
Absolutely.
And so,
absolutely.
All right. So how did this wind itself down where you got into the bigger stuff? And how'd you learn how to fly the plane? And where are we going with that?
Yeah, it was amazing. I got a shuttle business going, right? I'm back and
are you employing other people to do it, or are you just doing it yourself?
Okay, I'm doing it all by myself. Okay. But I realized one thing. It's taking me too much. I need $14 million. At 100 grand, it's going to take me a few years to raise this money. So I, and I got a pretty good business mind. So I said, the only way I could better this is by adding other boats. So some of the money that I was making now, I'm reinvesting. Sure. And I bought another speedboat. So now I went to see a friend of mine who's a truck driver who was in 2 terms in Vietnam. And then I say, hey, listen, I got a job offer for you. All the pot you could smoke. I said, $10,000 a week. What do I got to do? Is drive a speedboat back and forth from Bimini, not that far. So I put him on, and then I put another friend of mine. So now I got 3 or 4 little speedboats going back and forth. Now the problem that I have is I'm not getting enough marijuana from the Bahamas. Okay. Because you got to remember, Rachel, marijuana doesn't come from the Bahamas. It goes through the Bahamas. It comes from Colombia.
Oh, got it. Okay. And they couldn't get it fast enough for you to even pick it up. Got it. Okay.
Some of the weed that I'm buying actually came from the government.
Wow.
Because I find out that the uncle was connected with one of his relatives who was involved in the government. So all these seizures that they would do, when they would bust somebody, the government would take that weed and they were supposed to burn it. So now I meet one of those guys, and then they say, well, you got to burn this weed. I say, listen, I got somebody in Miami who'll burn it. Don't worry about getting burned. I said, I'll take everything that you can confiscate. Right. So now I've got 300,000. I got 2, 3 speedboats. I got this stuff, but I'm sitting idle because I'm not getting enough product in order to continue on my quest of 14 million. Right. Well, so I said, I was sitting in my...
What year is this, by the way?
I don't even know. Late 70s, early 80s, late 70s.
Okay. And what made, how come this was so easy to do back then?
Oh, no, it wasn't easy.
It wasn't, okay.
No, as a matter of fact, I've actually had a few people argue that point, and it's really, I could prove to you how it was harder back then, because you got to remember, at one point in life, all the weed, all the drugs, everything that came from outside the United States came through South Florida. Okay. That's just the way it was. Right. California was not in the picture. Mexico was not in the picture. Texas was not in the picture.
So there was one entry point. Yeah. And probably a lot of people in the game then, I'm assuming.
Well, not only a lot of people, but a lot of agencies in the game. Right. You have Marine Patrol, Coast Guard, DEA, Customs, ATF, any authority, local city police had a boat. Like, give you a perfect example. Indian Creek, you know that neighborhood? Yeah. They used to keep 2 police guys on a boat around the island. So one of my point entry houses, I had to go buy them. Right.
But in these days, like, was people in the government in on it because they were getting paid?
No.
They were cracking down on it, right? Wasn't Reagan making a whole thing about cracking down on it?
I was a big supporter of that. I contributed heavy, over 100 grand to the Republican Party of the war against drugs. Wow. Yeah, keep the price up.
My goodness. Okay, brilliant.
Weed out the amateurs.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so you have all this going. When do you decide you need to learn how to fly a plane?
Okay.
And how do you even get your hands on a plane?
Well, it's really kind of interesting because I'm thinking I need to go to the source of marijuana, where it originates from. Right. That's Colombia. Okay. Well, I have a speedboat. I can't go to Colombia in a speedboat. Right. I don't want to take a pleasure craft. It takes too long. And I don't even know anybody in Colombia. Right. I don't know anybody at all. So one thing led to the other, which led to the other, and leads to the other. What happened was I buy an airplane because I thought, well, I need to go to Colombia. That's the fastest, easiest way for me to go to Colombia. So when I buy an airplane, again, it's another story in itself. When I buy that airplane, wow. I thought I ripped off the guy, right? I thought I'm a great business guy. I'm getting this airplane for like next to nothing. After I buy the airplane, I buy it outside of Miami, Fort Lauderdale. It was in Tampa, actually, that I bought it. I tell the guy, okay, let's go. you know, and I don't know how to fly, right? So the guy goes, well, you can't ride in the airplane. I said, what do you mean I can't ride in the airplane? And the guy says, no, the airplane has no air certificate that's current. I said, what's an air certificate? Airworthiness. He says, the plane's been sitting for like a whole bunch of years, and it needs to be transported by a ferry permit, and we can't carry any passenger. I said, well, I'm not a passenger. I own the darn airplane.
Right.
And the guy goes, you are a passenger because you're not a pilot. So now I can't travel in my own airplane that I bought in Tampa. You know, I walk into this airplane, needed a paint job. The panel, which is what it's called, what we would call in the car business, a dash, was full of holes. But I'm a car guy, so I look at all these holes in the panel, and I say, so I need some gauges. Big deal, Pep Boys, right? You know, it's a gauge. So, and I look at the seats. There's no seats in the airplane. So I said, who the hell needs seats? I'm going to put marijuana here anyway.
Right.
So I'm not looking at the cosmetic. I'm looking at 2 engines on this airplane. If I lose an engine, I got another backup engine on the other side. This is my This is my way of thinking, right?
But did you think to yourself, who am I going to get to fly this? Or you were like, I'm going to fly this?
Oh, I'm going to fly this.
Okay.
But I need to learn how to fly.
Right.
And in order to learn how to fly, I need an airplane.
Right.
So that's why I bought that airplane.
Okay.
So I buy the airplane, and then I get, the airplane's going to go back to Fort Lauderdale, where somebody referred me to a place that worked on airplane, guy by the name of Billy. So Associated Air was the location where eventually I ended up owning all that stuff. And I'm sitting in Fort Lauderdale International Airport. With the whole wall was glass. I introduced myself to Billy, and I tell Billy, I said, hey, Billy, my airplane's flying in. I need you to, if you could hook me up with with like an instructor, I want to learn how to fly. He said, what kind of airplane did you buy? I said, I bought a Beechcraft, twin engine. He goes, oh, okay, hang on a second. We've got an airplane coming in with a problem, Mayday. So, and we're sitting there in the office with a glass wall, and wow, Mayday, something like, it's going to have something that's going to happen. So he goes, here it is. You see it up there? So I look up on this guy, and I go, damn, that's my airplane. Well, they declared a Mayday because the airplane was coming in without brakes, so it couldn't stop. So, I know, this is my great deal, right?
Oh, my God.
You know what I ended up calling that airplane?
What?
The Hangar Queen.
Oh.
Why? Because it was like a prima donna princess. More money. She never did anything.
Right.
She never flew. She never did a darn thing.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so it was my airplane. Came in, terrible. I put tons of money into the airplane. In the meantime, Billy says, I said, hey, man, can you hook me up with another airplane? He goes, I got another airplane that you could use, So he introduces me to a guy that was an instructor, a pilot. And that was funny, too, because he says, this guy really needs the money. I'm driving a Ferrari right at this time. So he says, here's the guy's address. Go talk to him. The guy could use really the money. So I pull up on the guy's house, and beautiful home, right? Big home. So I said, shoot, I should have brought another car. Not the Ferrari. They're going to charge me by what I'm driving, right? I get out of the car. I knock on the door. This old lady opens up the door, and I said, hi, I'm here to see Jack. So I thought maybe Jack's mom or something, right? She goes, what do you want with Jack? I said, well, I want to talk to him about giving him a job. And she goes, like in paying him, like in money? And I said, yeah. So she goes, come on, let's go. Slams the door, and I'm sitting there going, why are you slamming the door if you're going to introduce me to Jack? Well, Jack was renting a little cracker box, like a little shed in the lady's backyard.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. So he was excited about this job.
Of course, Jack, open up. This guy's going to pay you some money. And he was behind 2-3 months rent. So at that point,
Perfect timing.
Yeah. So the guy goes, let's go see your airplane. I gave her a few months, and then I set an account, a couple of more. So Jack, and then now we go to the airport. I got this other backup airplane that Billy introduced me to. So that's where I start learning how to fly.
So eventually with this aircraft, you start going to Colombia. Do you have to stop? You can go straight?
No, actually, no. It wasn't quite like that.
Oh.
What? I know, it's crazy.
Okay.
What happens is a friend of mine gets in trouble. He's got an airplane that got in trouble by the Bahamian authorities. It was chased in by DEA.
Okay.
It was an Albatross, a very, very expensive airplane. And they had to throw bales out, and land the airplane. So now this airplane is seized in the Bahamas, right?
Okay.
So my buddy calls me up. He says, T, I know you got some really strong contacts over there in the Bahamas. I got an airplane that's down by the authorities over there. You think you might be able to get me that airplane out? So I said, sure, at least I could try. So he says, how much you want for it? Like, what am I going to charge him? So, and I knew he had a weed contact. So I said, it's really simple. I don't want any money. So he goes, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'll tell you what I want. I want a weed contact in Colombia. That's what I want from my payment. And whatever is going to cost me to get your plane out. So I go over there, and then now he tells me that that airplane had an engine problem. So now I land in this little island. Now it's kind of funny, too, because I asked to speak to the director of that small little airport. And the guy says, what do you want with that airplane? I said, I want to take out the airplane. What's it going to take? And the guy goes, I can't allow you to take that airplane. That airplane came in hot. It was under suspicion of transporting marijuana. So I asked the guy, I said, can I get behind your desk for a second? So he goes, what do you want to do? I just want to show you something. So I come across and behind his desk, and he's got a drawer there, and I've got a briefcase with me. So I said, can I open up your door? And the guy goes, what do you want to open up? I just something that you would be really interested in seeing. So he's all right. So I open up his drawer. I take my briefcase and I put it on my lap. I open it up. I got over 100 grand there in Benjis, right? All facing up, nicely stacked, no rubber band paper. And the stacks are about $10,000. So I take one stack and I throw it in there. I take another stack. I throw it in there. I take another stack. I put about 40,000 in there, right? So I looked at the guy and I said, oh, by the way, in the event that you're curious to see how much is in there, it's 40,000. He goes, all right. He said, yeah, I could let you take the airplane. So I said, I got another problem. And he goes, what's the problem? I said, I need to work on the airplane. So he says, what do you mean work? I said, I need to work on one of the engines. The airplane won't get off the ground. So I said, here's another couple of stacks for you to look a little longer the other way. Because he says, I can't allow you to take it, but I can move the airplane to a corner of the airport where you could do what you need to do, and it'll be out of my eyes. So I said, well, here's another couple of $1,000 so you could look a little longer. So now I bring in mechanics. I got this airplane cranking. Meantime, I'm about 80 grand into this whole transaction, right? So I called up my buddy and I said, hey, listen, I need to get reimbursed, man. I'm getting a little too far behind this thing, right? And he goes, well, what's taking so long? I said, the goddamn airplane had all kinds of mechanical problem. Now you're questioning me. I'm already getting your airplane back, and you got me working back and forth. So he goes, well, you need to come by here. So I go to his house. When I go to his house, the Colombian that owns all this marijuana and his, all this, he's at his house. Guy's dressed like a little tennis outfit type thing, white this, gold Rolex. So, and I don't know this guy from Adam. So the guy questions me. He says, well, what stage is the airplane in? He says, I like to see it. I said, you want to see the airplane? Not a problem. Be ready. I'll pick you up in the Miami International Airport in 30 minutes. So now I go get in my airplane. Then I'm learning still how to fly with Jack.
Right.
Okay, now I'm learning. I'm getting stick time, right? So now I go pick this guy up. I bring him to the Bahamas. And now we're sitting there. He sees that I've got the airplane. I got mechanics. He sees all the stuff that's going on. So he says to me, listen, is that airplane that we flew in over here, is that your airplane? And there we were both facing like the horizon, drinking a beer. And he said, is that your airplane? I said, yeah, and that airplane does fly. He says, you want to put it to work? I said, absolutely. So he said, when can you go? I said, give me 1 minute. So then, wait for me right here. So I run away and I go to see Jack, which I always kept him away from all my little private meetings. He's in the room. So I say, hey, Jack. I said, you know what I do for a living? He goes, yeah, you're a builder. I said, yeah, I do that. He said, you know what else I do for a living? He said, yeah, you own I was the biggest cell phone company, by the way, of South Florida. Yeah, Trans World Communication.
Wait, time out. Before you finish the sentence, what are all the jobs you've had? Because I'd like this soundbite
10
from
or
you.
12
Tell
companies. Well, I was the biggest cell phone and also beeper That's another story in itself, how I
Okay.
got into that. That's really hilarious.
Okay.
And it really, really was kind of funny. And then I'm a builder. And then I had the Jefferson banks under contract. I wanted my own bank that I could own it, so I don't have to ask anybody for anything.
Right.
Now I own the damn bank.
Right.
And then I had the real estate business. I had an investment company. And then I was the number one Di Tommaso Pantera, Excalibur, Lotus, and Lamborghini dealer of the world. I had the biggest showroom. We sold, I think, for $40-something million without a car after I got seized years later. It was on 1624 East Sunrise Boulevard, right on the corner there.
Right.
And before the Circle. So, and I was adding a few other franchises. Right off the top, that's stuff that I own. I own a lot of other stuff that I didn't even know. Then when I had my money in Europe, I was investing in a lot of other stuff,
Right. Well, and you were piloting cocaine for Pablo Escobar.
Not at that point.
Well, but that's one of the things
Oh,
on your
yeah.
resume.
Oh, yeah, I left that out.
Yeah. The little thing that
part.
you forgot. So I want to get it, because all these stories we could go into for so long, and I want to hear all of them. I want people to hear it in your book.
Right.
So I do want to get into the first time. So eventually you get yourself to Colombia, and I'm assuming you start doing the runs back and forth with marijuana.
Yeah, with marijuana at the beginning.
At the beginning. What was the first time you were asked to fly cocaine?
Well, I was doing the marijuana flying. This guy turns me on to this Colombian guy that I flew to the Bahamas. He's got a partner now in Colombia, and now I'm doing marijuana for us.
Okay.
For myself.
How often?
As often as I can get it, And
And what's that flight? You're going Colombia, you're stopping in the Bahamas? Like where?
Colombia, that would be Bahamas, Colombia, Bahama, and then I take it off what I was doing is actually doing a thing called airdrops because I didn't have a contact at an airport to land an airplane.
Oh.
So I said to Jack, here, got to go back here real quick. I said, so Jack goes, yeah, you're a builder. You're this, you're this, you're this. And I said, yeah, I'm all of that. I said, but you know what else I do for a living? He goes, no, what? I said, marijuana, man, drugs. And he goes, why are you telling me that? I said, simple, because I need to go to Colombia to pick up a load of marijuana, and I don't know enough to find Colombia. I don't know how to navigate, and I'm not really sure of myself yet flying solo.
Right.
And he goes, I said, I'll give you $50,000. And he said, well, I don't want to get arrested. I said, you're not getting arrested because we're going to land without the pot. So he goes, how are we going to go there, pick up marijuana, and come back and land the airplane without marijuana on the airplane? I said, because what we're going to do is I'm going to put two of my speedboats in the middle of the ocean. We're going to fly over, and I'll open up the door, and I'm going to kick out the ton of marijuana that we have in the airplane. And then they're going to worry about bringing it in. And you and I are going to continue flying, and we'll land in the airport without any pot.
Right. Refuel and go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Genius.
I thought so.
Okay. So, all right, now tell me
That's
about
what I
how.
did.
That's amazing.
No,
and
it's really
by the way,
good.
you guys must have gotten that good to be able to get close enough to
Yeah,
the ocean,
yeah.
and that's a whole nother story.
Oh my God, Rachel, that's what puts me into the cocaine world.
Okay,
Because that was like the Keystone Cops. I hit on one, I missed on two. I hit on two, missed on three. We put the stuff on the wrong boats one time. We broke down the radio communication. It was like no 101 course on smuggling. It wasn't like I can go somewhere and take a course on smuggling.
Right.
So it was all on the job learning. I had radio. Yeah, I got a radio here. All of a sudden that radio doesn't work. How do I communicate to the boat? Well, there's two boats down there that look like they're our boats. One time we couldn't find each other, and I'm describing where we're at by clouds in the sky. You see the one that looks like a giraffe? Well, I'm just south of that. And it was like horrible.
So you would drop it sometimes on the wrong boat.
Yeah, that happened one time. That's horrible, huh?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
and
and
did they ever, what happened?
Well, could you imagine you're out there fishing with a friend and
Or
family,
you're
and then,
sunbathing
and the plane flies over and drops 1,000 pounds of marijuana.
so, and you don't
2,000.
know whatever happened to it, I'm assuming.
No, I'm in the airplane.
And that was that.
That was that. I'm talking to my guys. I put it right on your lap. No, you didn't.
Oh my gosh. All right. So we graduate.
Well, you know what happened? I now owe $800,000 to Colombia,
Oh,
to a Colombian.
okay.
All right, I get behind the 8 ball. I'm getting now a credit line, another credit line.
Right.
And then the guy that I owe this $800,000 has no sense of humor. Pablo Escobar would be like a choir boy next to this guy, okay? That's how bad these guys are. Okay. These guys are like Wajida. They're, I'm not pointing any fingers or anything. It's like an Indian type of race. Okay. They're very, very...
serious.
Yeah, they're real serious players. Mm-hmm. Well, they shoot that guy that was dressed in the tennis outfit. They kill him, my partner. And they kidnapped me.
Wow.
They put me in a house, and now they're hitting me with guns. And I tell the guy, I say, hey, listen. And as soon as I say, hey, listen, I get hit again. Right? No, you listen. And these words, I'll never forget these words. He said, this ain't no movie and you ain't no cowboy. I want my effing 800,000 or you're dead. So I said, and then I get hit again. So about the third or fourth time he hits me, I said, all right, listen, let's just go straight to the kill me part. Mm. I'm not going to allow myself to get tortured, getting hit by a gun, and you're going to shoot me anyway. Mm. So I just move right to the end. And then I said, but now if you let me talk for 1 second, I can show you how we can get out of this mess. If you shoot me, my problems are over.
Right.
I got nothing else to worry about. Your problem.
They still have a big problem.
Yeah, you still got a problem. I still owe you 800,000.
Yeah.
I said I got 4 speedboats, I got 2 pleasure crafts, and I got 2 airplanes. I got the Hangar Queen, and I got Carmen, that other airplane that I named Carmen after a girl, not my girlfriend, somebody else's. And she wasn't any good. That's why I called her. And so yeah, wow. So I sit there and I said, if you let me talk, you know, I could sell one of these things and bring you your 800,000 right away. So he goes, I said, give me 24 hours. Meanwhile, by the way, I never mentioned this before, you know, my family did not know what I was doing. Nobody had any idea of what I was doing.
And by the way, at this point, are you still single? Are you married?
No, I was married.
You're married, okay.
Yeah.
And your wife didn't even know?
No, she didn't. Okay. You know, I'm in real estate. I'm looking at the property, and remember I told you that I was a builder? I'm looking to do a little project development, you know, because now I'm not doing the sugar mill thing right now, but I'm going to develop some property in the Bahamas, so I'm flying here. And now I am in the car business now. Right? So why would I be getting into the airplane? I told my family, I'm in the car business. People come in all the time asking me, hey, I want to get an airplane. Can you give me a referral? So I said, well, why not sell them an airplane too? So that was a good thing for my family to hang a hat on.
Right.
Why am I getting into the airplane business? Because I could sell airplanes.
Let me ask you a question. Sidebar. In the meantime, are you still working on the sugar mill project?
Yeah,
or is that on hold?
No, I'm losing everything.
You're losing everything.
Everything.
Okay.
I actually defaulted on the $780,000 that I owed Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Because now 3 years have gone by.
Got it. Okay.
But I figured if I make enough money, I could get it all back.
Got it. So that was like the impetus of the whole thing still. Yeah. Okay.
I lose it. I actually lost everything.
So I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well.
So you get in trouble with this guy. Do you make his 800,000 back for him?
Pardon me?
The guy you got in trouble with, the very serious guy, do you get his 800,000 back to him?
Yeah, I go and then he allows me to take 24 hours, right? So I go to the Bahamas to this guy named Luis, little Colombian guy, terror, but he's a very good friend of mine. So I say, hey, Luis, you want to buy Gigi? Gigi is an airplane that everybody thought, again, it was named after a girl. No, Gigi stood initials for the Gray Ghost. And you would say, why the Gray Ghost? Because I painted her runway gray. And at nighttime when we land, I keep one engine running in case we need to get off the ground again quickly. Yeah. And then we cut one engine off so that nobody would get cut up by a propeller when the door opens up to take out the bales, right? So you'd hear the noise, but you really couldn't see Gigi. So I named her the Gray Ghost. He says, what do you want to sell her for? I said, because I'm not going to need her. So he says, what do you mean you're not going to need her? I said, I want to be dead if I don't get my hands on 800,000. He said, how much you need again? I said, 800,000. He said, you want to make $1 million? I said, Luis, I need $1 million like I need air. I said, yeah, what do I have to do for $1 million? He said, fly cocaine. So the way I looked at it, I'm either dead. So it was not an option. I'm in the cocaine transportation business.
Wow.
So he paid me $1 million to go to his farm, pick up 450 kilos, I think was my first trip that I did of cocaine, and then bring it to the Bahamas. And then he was going to bring it over to the United States. And when you're dealing with these Colombians at this level, you got to dot your I's and cross your T's 3 or 4 times, because one little misunderstanding can cost you your life. So I said, Luis, I don't have to wait for this cocaine to get to the United States to get paid. I do my part. I expect you owe me $1 million. And I need to get paid right away because I got 24 hours. I'm on the clock to pay this guy back. So we agreed on all the terms. I do the trip. And then now I get paid $1 million. The following day, I got an extension on the 24 hours. Luis got me the extension because he knew Tocayo. And at that level, the air is really thin. So he stood for the loan, Luis, backed me up, got me another 24 hours. So I get the other, I go to a hotel, I count out the money. I messed up 3-4 times counting the money. My hands are turning green and all that kind of crazy stuff, right? It was horrible. So it's easier to do. Peel out 200,000. That's my money. I'm going to take the other, whatever's left. It should be 800. So according to Luis being his addition being correct. So now I take that amount of money. I was in a Ferrari. They paid me with garbage money because there were 20s and 50s, all right, and 5s, and they didn't even fit in my Ferrari. I had to take the top off the car. If I would have hit a speed bump, I would have probably lost a box with 50 grand or something like that. So I get the money, put it in the car. I drive it over to where they kidnapped me, and they have put me in that house. Now I had a whole different attitude, right? I pulled up there, I walked in, and I said, the effing money's in the car, go get it. So they looked at me like, really? I said, yeah, go get it. And oh, by the way, I'm not staying here until you count this effing money. So right in the suitcases full of money, threw it on the kitchen counter, the table that they had there. And the guy says, he calls up Tocayo in Colombia. He goes, he's got the money, it's here. Put him on the radio. So I get on the radio, and then he says to me, so my brother, when are you coming back? I said, don't my brother me. I said, I'm in the cocaine business. Don't ever talk to me about marijuana. And at that point, I was like on a horse, and I wouldn't get off that damn horse for nobody.
So it's interesting. You're no longer the kid who's wet behind the ears. You're no longer.
Thick skin.
Yeah, you are that
an
man. And at some point,
I get goosebumps.
Pablo Escobar comes into your life.
Because now I'm setting the world on fire. I don't do drugs. I'm a professional at whatever I do, whatever it is. Just be the best you can be.